Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia Liu. I'm a fourth-year computer science undergraduate from UC Berkeley. Thank you all so much for welcoming me to the lovely Hypertext community this year. Today, I'm delighted to share my Blue Skies work that I did in collaboration with Shim Almeda, a sixth-year PhD in HCI at the Berkeley Institute of Design. Our paper is called Agency Among Agents, Designing with Hypertextual Friction in the Algorithmic Web. So in this conference, we've already heard a lot of work on algorithms and agency. Our work builds on that momentum that seems to be building and positions our hypertext community and research as critical to this future and also offers actionable paths forward. Okay, so today's internet is strangely obsessed with the old internet. Isn't that kind of weird? You see it everywhere. The Y2K aesthetic, neo-cities, digital gardens, and plain HTML blogs. And I get it, because for my generation, the evil inner workings of the algorithmic web are starting to show. And our web doesn't work for us anymore. And so that's why I'm here. Today, I'll walk us through our collective journey from the early 2000s web to the modern, increasingly algorithmic web, and where it seems to be heading next. In our work, we break the algorithmic web into two forms, different in how they automate, but united by the same corporate goals. The first is the platformized web, which is a term that I borrow from Jaron Lanier's talk on AI authorship at Berkeley. It describes the centralization of online life into platforms owned by conglomerates like Meta and Google. The second is the agentic web, which is the one I'll focus on today. This is the phase where AI agents increasingly co-act with us, humans, shaping what we see and do online. So through two case studies, our findings point us towards a novel design stance that we call hypertextual friction. A reframing of classical hypertext values we know very well in this community, friction, structure, and traceability, as design commitments to reclaim human agency in an increasingly algorithmic web. This reframing positions hypertext's original goals as more important to the broader world of computing now than ever. And so you'll see a theme emerge, which is authorship as agency, a sentiment that we know the hypertext community better than anyone else, from hypertext fiction to Nelson and Engelbart's founding visions. So in this talk, I'll start with some key related works, then walk us through the second case study, and then I'll end by sharing what it means to design with hypertextual friction. So human-computer interaction researchers have long argued that algorithms render invisible what needs to be made visible so that users can find meaning and connection. They've shown how algorithms blur the line between art and content, reducing creativity to fuel for ad models or AI training. Friction has also already appeared in design discussions as well, through so-called seamful interfaces, as opposed to seamless interfaces, where slowness is built in to give users more control. And in hypertext research, we've always seen hypertext as more than just structure. It's also a way of thinking and an evolving practice. Spatial hypertext, in particular, has been shown to support creative play in practice. And just last year, a Blue Skies submission from Otzenbeck argued that hypertextual values can actually serve as ethical anchors when facing the unpredictability and black box nature of AI systems. Now, the last piece of related work that I want to spotlight is by hypertextual artist Kia Amasola. And so they're another person from my generation who's very fascinated by hypertext, and whose work I highly recommend if you haven't heard of them already. They argue that what makes hypertext special is how it presents readers as authors and how every act of linking is also an act of authorship. So the through line across this prior work on agency, friction, and hypertext is clear. Authorship is critical to our sense of control, and it's something that hypertext uniquely offers today. So that brings me to our research question, which is how can hypertextual values help reclaim agency in an increasingly algorithmic web? Like I said earlier, today I'll be focusing on the second category, which is the agentic web. And through a comparison between two platforms, DALL-E and Arena, I will show just how these different systems are driven by design philosophies and also point towards a very interesting future. So before I get into the case study, I'm going to define some key terms for this work. An agent, this is actually a very overloaded term used today. This is a buzzword that we hear a lot now, just like how it used to be LLMs and Gen AI. But an agent is an actor, human or AI, that takes action within a system or a larger environment. The agentic web is a new phase of the internet where human and AI agents interact, characterized by evolving web-based interfaces that are a result of the growing popularity of LLMs. And this last definition is key. Agency, the long-forgotten cousin of the word agent, means the ability to act intentionally and to shape outcomes. Okay, so now on to our case study between DALL-E and Arena. So I'm sure most of us are familiar with DALL-E. It's OpenAI's image generation tool. Today, it has to be accessed through ChatGPT, which is their chatbot. And so in this setup, ChatGPT acts as a mediator between the user who wants to generate an image and the generator. ChatGPT takes the user's prompt and refines it in order to execute the user's desires. And so this refinement includes translating edit commands and handling multi-turn interactions, like remembering the history of the chat. But both of these tasks require the model to understand, or more accurately, to try to guess what the user really means. And so the tool we contrast DALL-E with is Arena. Uh, I'm curious really quick. Has anyone heard of Arena here? Okay, yay, cool. Okay, good. Um, so created in 2011, which is actually a surprising, it's pretty old. It's a very visionary creative research platform for collecting, linking, and for annotating media. From the very start, it was inspired by Nelson Xanadu and hypertext principles. And crucially, it has no recommendations done by algorithms. Instead, meaning emerges through the connections that the user makes with their natural intelligence between the blocks, which are the media that they save. And so Arena actually noticed the preprint of our work and posted it on their X profile, which was pretty cool. Okay. And so to really experience the difference between DALL-E and Arena for ourselves, we decided to test both platforms with a simple question, which was, how well can DALL-E visualize the vibe of the song Lebanese Blonde by Thievery Corporation? So Lebanese Blonde is a song from the year 2000. It's an electronic lounge track that opens with the lines, "Too low to find my way, too high to wonder why. I've touched this place before, somewhere in another time." And we didn't choose this song at random. So for me personally, it carries a deeply personal vibe because Spotify's recommendation algorithm actually recommended it to me while I had COVID. And so I was bedridden, feverish, and I'm pretty sure in like a vivid dream-like scene, I imagined some sort of landscape that I've never forgotten. And so this resonance is important here because it shows the kind of meaning that algorithms often miss or flatten. Okay, so our first approach was simple. We asked DALL-E to generate an image using only the song's lyrics. With a single button press, this whole process took about 30 seconds, and as expected, the result on the right was literal. It reduced the song to its surface meaning and completely missed the vibe that I had in mind. So I gave up on AI and I took matters into my own hands and I curated this mood board to capture the vibe. And I pulled from other people's collections on Arena and my own media archive, which was the product of many years of Wikipedia rabbit holes and music-driven exploration. So I spent over 2 hours working on this, listening to the song on loop over and over again, and slowly shaping this vague desert scene, something between the movie Rango, the book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, um, which I first discovered through my deep dives into 60s counterculture years before. Okay, so why does this matter? I hadn't just made a mood board. I had developed a vocabulary through this process to describe the vibe itself, written right into the board itself. And this process turned into a kind of spatial hypertext exploration where meaning emerged from linking, arrangement, and active annotation done by me. My last approach was to return to DALL-E, this time armed with both the mood board and the vocabulary that I had developed. Um, and using these guides, I prompted DALL-E more specifically and refined the output through a multi-turn interaction. And so this hybrid process took around 30 minutes, which was longer than the one-shot attempt at first. But the result, as you can see, was much closer to my vision. Okay, so now we can zoom out and look at all three approaches. We moved from an instant, one-click, lyrics-only prompt to a slow but enjoyable mood boarding process, and then finally a hybrid approach which combined Arena and DALL-E. And the difference is quite clear. The final image is more resonant, personal, and unlike the purely denotative and surface level result from the first attempt. And so what's interesting here is that we actually could have stopped right at the mood board because the mood boarding process itself was already the process that created meaning. So mood boarding was the process. It was intentional, interpretive, slow, inefficient in the best way, laborious, frictive, and deeply hypertextual. And in a sense, it didn't just take me 2 hours. It actually took me around 5 years, which was the accumulation of my own personal media archive that I'd been collecting long before I had sat down to make the mood board. So what resulted wasn't just a better image, it was also a better process. Mood boarding was more resonant, personal, and engaging than the output alone, making the journey just as valuable as the result. So this shows how the act and feeling of authorship gave me agency, not only over the final AI-generated image, but also the whole generation process itself. To formalize this finding, together with insights from our first case study on the platformized web, which you can find in the paper, and it is also crucial to the story, we outline a novel design stance that we call hypertextual friction. Hypertextual friction reframes friction, structure, and traceability as counter strategies to resist the growing influence of the algorithmic web. So the very first value is friction. It's the slow, intentional navigation that defines a hypertextual, user-driven experience. By contrast, algorithmic systems optimize for seamlessness and efficiency. One click, even zero click, frictionless flows that leave little room for human authorship and interpretation. The second value is traceability. And Nelson knew this long before I stand here today because he emphasized the importance of visible links. It's a design strategy for preserving provenance, not only for the users themselves, but also the people who engage with the artworks. And it's more crucial today than ever because in agentic systems, the underlying logic is systematically hidden inside black box architectures. The last value is structure. A reminder from decades of hypertext practice that meaning emerges through linking. This stands in sharp contrast to algorithmic systems which flatten process into smooth, output-focused results. Okay, so to close, I want to return to a simple reminder from Steve Jobs, which is that creativity is just connecting things. We now know that when we optimize purely for efficiency, we flatten the deeply human acts of creation and curation into surface-level affect. That's why we need to reimagine friction and slowness, not as bugs to eliminate, but as features to design for. Next, personalization doesn't need to be, and maybe shouldn't be, fully delegated to algorithms. There's a unique power in the act of our own authorship, where ownership, trust, agency can exist, even within algorithmic systems among agents. Building on this, my current work focuses on fully realizing, so that includes creating and testing, hybrid systems that embody the values of hypertextual friction. The goal is to make them scalable to large inputs and to large communities, while still prioritizing user authorship and valuing process as much as outcome. As the algorithmic web continues to evolve, we must not grant AI agents unchecked agency or erase human authorship. Preserving resonance, meaning, and human labor is where it begins. And we have to remember that everything is intertwined, especially among agents. So that's Agency Among Agents. Again, I'm Sophia Liu. I'm a senior at UC Berkeley, and I'd love to continue the conversation about hypertext, agency, and algorithms. You can reach me at my Berkeley email, find more at my website. And then really quick, I'd also like to thank my co-author Shim, and also James, Tim, Samia, Kevin, and Professor Bjorn Hartman at Berkeley for all their support during my talk. And lastly, Anushka, for coming with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any question?
The paper before, I was going to ask Benham what to do to actually make sure that we do this properly and introduce or re-emerge that hypertext in the era of submerging of hypertext. And Sophia, you just showed us what to do. Hypertext friction is the way to go. You embodied how to rise the hypertext up and be something or create something over an hypertext as resistance in the age of AI. So thank you very much. You are the answer to the questions from the previous papers.
Thank you.
Thank you for the amazing talk. So my question is mostly about this friction. So like talking about this is easy, but when you come to practice, you want to publish papers, there are metrics that are measuring how good a system is or how bad a system is. And one of the things that people are looking at is how fast people can complete their task and how easy they can complete their task. And this is completely opposite to that.
Yeah.
So do you think we should just say we're not looking at those as if like we don't care about how long this took, we just care about how it ended up? Or no, I think you mentioned this in your talk, that we not only doing that, but also saying we look at how long it took and we say, for example, this is also an important part of the results. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you bring up a very important point, and this is something that within HCI research is a very contentious topic. It's like, what are the metrics that we should be designing our interfaces to optimize for? And so it's always hardest, I think, to change things from the bottom up. Yeah, basically, it's the most basic values that we think are what we want in our seamless, user-friendly interfaces that may not be correct anymore, especially as we see this turn towards flattened systems. So it's going to take a lot of collective work as a community within Hypertext and also like HCI and other computing disciplines. Yeah.
I wanted to add one more thing. Is like I talked about AI systems making things much more easier for people and more convenient, so people are more prone to go and use the AI. This might be a kind of a contradiction to that or something opposed to that, saying like, since you're getting some discount on how much efforts you need to put to complete this task, now with AI, now let's at least put some efforts on making sure that the AI completely understand you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be extra difficult because it's almost counterintuitive to what we want, which is like instant results and like as minimal like computation of what the user is thinking to execute their task. But what's lost is the user's like labor in the process. And sometimes they don't even realize what it is that they want before they even ask. And so then they're served a final result and they're like, yeah, this looks great. Like it looks reasonable, right? But then we lose just unique perspectives that can only come through slow processes like that. Yeah.
Thanks. Really enjoying the session. Lots of interesting thinking. Looking specifically in your work, very simple question. Do you think that what you're suggesting actually is a human AI collaboration?
Human AI collaboration.
Human AI collaboration. That's the way it looks for me, but well, you know, I maybe have tunnel vision, right? So does it look to you? Because technically what you're suggesting is that now instead of just getting guys something and then getting results, it's a more complicated process and human are engaged more maternally. They get more agency, which is the whole point of whole hypertext originally. That's why it's a really great match and a way to rethink the hypertext in the age of LLM. But what do you think about that, right? It's my take, maybe not yours.
Yeah, I think it definitely seems like an extreme stance, but it's not completely saying no to AI overall. It's an idea to rebuild these systems. And so why do we still need AI in this process at all? I mean, there's so many obvious advantages to AI. I use it a lot. I love AI. Like that's why I'm interested in this because I don't want us to go down a path where we, yeah, again, like delegate way too much agency to agents and like keep that for ourselves in this augmented process facilitated by AI.
Yeah, that's a mindful approach to AI, which we try to teach in our program. So thank you for that. My question that goes back to your comment about how we're fascinated by the older internet design, right? Dancing hamsters, lots of tiling, bad colors. In fact, no color schema that makes any sense. But we have this nostalgia for it, and my theory has been that it's because it's so raw. That there's so much that's perfect now. We spend so much money designing and making it perfect. We know exactly where the eye is going to go. The user, we designed for that F-shaped design. We have developed color palettes and strategies. It's become so corporatized that my students and even myself go back and look at those older sites and think, that's really cool because it's just weird. Right. So what is your response? What do you think? I mean, do you think that it's not just nostalgia, there's something else. It's not just algorithms, but it's something else. It's that experimental element, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not just about an appreciation of the aesthetics of the old internet. That's one thing. It's cute. But it's also, I think, because we get closer to the original goals of the web and of like connecting people, the global village, collective consciousness. I think it's because we get closest to those original founding words. And so I think it's important that we dig into that and not just get lost in, yeah, the optimized UI that we see today. Yeah.
In some ways, it seems to call for a slower, friction-filled experience as a beau geste, something that we would desire but will have a great deal of difficulty selling. But I wonder if slow food might be, which did succeed, might be a precedent. And after all, it isn't all artisanal food and pasta grannies. One branch of it was ultra processed molecular gastronomy, which, so it doesn't necessarily carry its dogma, but it carries the ideal of mindfulness and slowness
Mhm.
as a virtue.
Yeah, I have to look up slow foods, but another turn towards this, I think I saw on Spotify, there's a whole category of playlists that are titled human curated playlists. And so the fact that they're like they have a whole category for this, that means people want that. Yeah.
You mean mixtapes, surely?
Yeah, mixtapes. Yes, our current day playlists. Yeah.
I think no